of Islam. It is a God. It's God ordained, divine institution. It's a very informative khutbah. So what I am trying to do in this khutbah is simply continue and understand more deep into what the Quran says about that particular aspect of religion. There is a verse in the Quran in Surah 30 verse 21 where God tells us so that among his proofs is that he created for you spouses from among yourselves in order to have tranquility and contentment with each other. And he placed in your hearts love and care towards your spouses. In this, there are sufficient proofs for people who think. So God is presenting something about marriage or finding spouses, and God says that it is a proof of him, that having that peace and tranquility and contentment with another soul is a proof of God's existence. We have to think about what that means, because we all come from different backgrounds, we all come from different experiences, we have a lot of differences. When two people come together, they may have not known each other for a long time, but they are coming together and they are working on their relationship, and there is tremendous love, affection, compassion, all of the beautiful emotions between two people. It suddenly happens, you don't even realize how that happens, because you would think, this person I didn't even know, or that person would think I didn't even know, but suddenly now I start feeling a deep connection and emotion with this person. So that will, if you think about it, you will realize that despite all the differences, that person must have come from a house somewhere in your country, or maybe from another place. But then you realize that you still feel very connected to that person. It's like having a bond like how you have with your parents, with your children. That kind of deep connection, emotional connection, is established with a total stranger. So when we reflect on it, we'll understand that how did I transcend from that state of loving myself and loving my people, my family, my relatives, my achievements, into loving someone who's completely different from me, or someone who's not even related to me. That is a proof of God's mercy and God's blessings. That's what this verse is talking about. That feeling that comes into you out of nowhere for another person who's not even related to you. And God says that he placed in your hearts love and care towards your spouse. So it was not there initially. This love and affection towards another person was not there initially. It was placed into you. Placed by whom? Placed by God. God places that love, affection, and care towards another person. You randomly meet a person, you don't really care about them, right? Maybe to some extent, but not too much. You wouldn't care whether they're going to reach home or where they are they safe. If you just meet a random person on the street, you wouldn't worry about them. You think, oh, there are other people to worry about that person. Why should I worry? Right? So this person used to be someone like that, someone that you didn't even bother to care about, but now suddenly he or she is in your life and you start to care about them. Oh, is this person going to come home? Where is this person? Are they sick? Are they good? Are they eating? All these kind of emotions are coming to a total stranger, to a person that you never knew. So where are these emotions coming from? Where are these feelings coming from? Why do you love your wife? Why do you love your husband so much? It's because God is placing love and affection in your hearts. And that is what God says is a proof from him. If you really reflect on that, if you really reflect on why those emotions are coming, you would know that this is very unique. Because I have no real reason to have this kind of emotions to a stranger or a person who just came into my life. Of course, you'll have such emotions to your parents because they raised you, they fed you. Ever since you landed on earth as a human being, you've seen them, your siblings and all those people. But this person may not have been in your life experience up until a certain point, but you still have a very strong emotion towards this person. So that is why God says at the end of the verse that there are sufficient proofs for people who think. So if we reflect on it, we'll understand that this emotion is coming from God. It's not from within you, it's coming from God. God is placing that care and affection. Then God says in 39:6, He created you from one person, then created from him his mate. He sent down to you 8 kinds of livestock. He creates you in your mother's bellies, creation after creation, in trimesters of darkness. Such is God, your Lord. To Him belongs all sovereignty. There is no other God beside Him. How could you deviate? So God is explaining about creation in this verse. And God says something very important. He created you from one person, then created from him his mate. If you look at the literal meaning or the Arabic in this particular verse, it says that He created us from one soul, one nafs. And then from that soul He created a man, and from that man He created his mate. So this is what the creation of human beings are. Every soul was created from one single soul, which started with Adam, and from Adam God created Eve, or Hawa as they call it in Arabic. So this is what the Quran is teaching us. So each person has a soul that has been created for him or her. In this world, when we arrive here, your destiny, who you will marry, who you will have children with, who you will feel contentment with, is already written by God. God has already decided it. When you will find this person, when you will settle down with this person, what kind of emotions you will have is already written by God. Before you even arrive here, once your soul is created, once your soul is ready, placed in your body, similarly there is another person who is supposed to be your partner in life. So these are some of the information that God is teaching us in the Quran. A man is created, and from it, its mate is created. And then God says in 1672, and God made you spouses from among yourselves, and produced for you from your spouses children and grandchildren, and provided you with good provisions. Should they believe in falsehood and turn unappreciative of God's blessings? So this is also another verse which tells us that God creates spouses from among ourselves. Anfusukum, it says, within yourself. So from you, your spouse has been created, man or woman. So it is our purpose in this life is to follow God's guidance. If we know that a soul has been created for you, you know that it's just a matter of finding that person, reaching that destiny. But you cannot find it unless you submit to God's guidance. We all have this feeling in our hearts that, I will do it, I will find it, I will this is the person. We rush on things. We always rush. We don't wait for God's guidance. God will guide us to that person. God will show us, this is the person for you. But most of us do not follow God's guidance. We follow our own ego. We want it now. I want it now. Everybody else has it, so I want it now. We have this kind of mindset. I can't be left behind. I have to do it now. So that's the ego. That's the ego telling you that you have to compete, or you have to rush things. You can't be left behind. The ego is very uncomfortable. The ego is telling, no, you cannot wait anymore. Just do it. Just do it. You see? But God tells us very clearly that He has already created for you the person who's meant for you. It's there. Now it's just a matter of that person coming into your experience. But for that to happen, you have to obviously believe in God's guidance. Be patient and wait for God to guide you to that person. And when you seek God's guidance and God brings that person into your life, only then will you find tranquility and peace with that person. Tranquility, peace, and contentment, as the Quran says, can only be achieved with the person that God has chosen for you, not the person you chose for yourself. Because when you choose for yourself, you're choosing it with your ego. But when God chooses for you, it's divinely ordained, it's planned. So that will definitely bring you the promise that God gives in the Quran: peace, contentment, and tranquility. So that is why God tells us in the Quran, in Surah 24, verse 32, you shall encourage those of you who are single to get married. They may marry the righteous among your male and female servants if they are poor. God will enrich them from His grace. God is bounteous, knower. So God here tells us that we have to seek someone for marriage. Marriage is a divine institution. We have to be ready for it. We have to keep ourselves open for it. And that's the reason why God tells us that a soul has already been created for you. It's a matter of finding. In some cases, because of our ignorance, because of perhaps our soul is not ready, we may end up finding people who are wrong for us. We may end up thinking that this person, oh yes, I want this person, he is perfect or she is perfect, but that's not the person for you. Why? Because again, the ego is leading us to believing that this is the one for us. That's why in the khutbah, Dr. Ashad Khalifa said, the first thing you need to have between the two couples is love. Now love has to be mutual, it's not one-sided. I want this man, I want this woman. Now that's a one-sided. You're trying hard to make them love you. But if God is in between these two people, God will place the love without you even trying. But if it's not meant for you, it will be a lot of trying. You will try hard. Because the ego will tell you, no, you can't let it go, just do it, So that's the ego always pushing you towards something that's not meant for you. But the Quran clearly says, you shall encourage. So we have to keep ourselves in our mind that marriage is divinely ordained, and therefore there are certain things that we have to think about before we search for someone. In Surah 4, verse 25, God says, those among you who cannot afford to marry free believing women may marry believing slave women. God knows best about your belief, and you are equal to one another as far as belief is concerned. You shall obtain permission from their guardians before you marry them, and pay them their due dowry equitably. They shall maintain moral behavior by not committing adultery or having secret lovers. Once they are freed through marriage, if they commit adultery, their punishment shall be half of that of the freed women. Marrying a slave shall be the last resort for those unable to wait. To be patient is better for you. This is the most important part. To be patient is better for you. God is forgiver, most merciful. Why is God saying to be patient is better for you? Is more better? Because the more you maintain patience in finding the one that you were going to marry, the more you will be guided towards the person who is actually meant for you. When we rush things, it never works. You'll end up with the wrong people, perhaps become hurt. But that's an experience that you have to go through to reach that kind of soul growth so that you can find whoever is meant for you. So God is advocating, after saying all of this, at the end God says, being patient is better for you. Now there may be people who cannot stay single for whatever reason. Maybe it's probably they have old people at home that needs to be taken care of. Perhaps they have some other issues or any other concern, which we all know what it is. So if you have that kind of problems, God says you can marry. And it is very important to note in this verse also that God says you may even marry a slave woman. Why is that? Because when it comes to marriage and bonding with another person, your status, your culture, your what kind of person you are, society, norms, nothing matters. What matters is righteousness. What matters is having that good relationship with your spouse, a believing person. That's what matters. So that is the reason why God says you shall even marry a slave woman. If you cannot wait, you may marry for the sake of being righteous. They shall maintain moral behavior by not committing adultery. This is talking about the slave. So if you marry a slave, you have to find someone who's moral. Inshallah, I'll end with this part of the khutbah with that verse. Tubul Allah, repent. Alhamdulillah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Praise be to God, I bear witness that there is no God but God and He has no partners. Now, God also gives us guidance as to what kind of partners that we have to look for. It is not said that just find someone and just get married. Because that's what a lot of societies will tell you. When you're in a society, God will say, the people will say, just get married to this person or that person. But God gives us clear instructions as to what kind of a person should we choose to be our life partner. Why is that? It's because your hereafter depends on it. You choose a wrong person, you're doomed. This is what the Quran says. People will resist it. No, I can fix it. No. But the Quran says no. You choose a wrong person, you're doomed. You're going to go to hell with them. So that's the reason why God places. God knows better. We shouldn't argue back and say, no, I know this will work. No. She or he has to believe. Only until then they are haram for you. It's prohibited. So you have to marry someone who is a believer. And you can take your time. God did not say she has to believe in 6 months or he has to believe in 6 months. Take your time until they understand. But you will know from the beginning whether this person will believe or not. So believing is very important. Without belief, we are not supposed to marry them. In Surah 2, verse 221, God says, do not marry idolaters unless they believe. That's the most key part. Unless they believe. So this person can be an idolatress or an idolater before, but if they believe, then they become permitted for you. If they don't believe, they are prohibited for you. You may like them to the moon. You may be very attracted, but if they don't believe, they become prohibited for you. Why? Because they'll drag you to hell without you even knowing it. A believing woman is better than an idolatress, even if you like her. So you may be in cloud 9 and you may be like dreaming and everything, but God says you will come down to earth, to reality after the marriage, and then you will know this person will drag you to hell. So do not marry an idolatrous person. Marry someone who believes, someone who's a monotheist, someone who believes in God alone. Nor shall you give your daughters in marriage to idolatrous men. This is for the fathers. Now, you may have children who may say, no, I want this man or I want this woman. They are free to do. We can't put compulsion on them. But you will not say, I agree. Okay, I agree. Okay, you get married. I'll come and let's celebrate. No. If you know that this person is an idolater, you should not be part of it. She or he has the right to marry anyone they want, because the Quran says there is no compulsion in religion. However, you will not be a part of it. So that's why God says, do not give your daughters in marriage to idolatrous men, unless they believe. Again, there's a condition. Just because they're an idolater now does not mean that you have to make it haram. You are free to marry him, and I will give you my permission as long as he believes or she believes. So if she believes or he believes, then as a parent you can give them permission. Yes, you have my blessing. Let's do this. So very clear instructions. God is not giving us vague instructions. Very clear instructions on who we should marry. And God says a believing man is better than an idolater, even if you like him. So you may have romantic feelings, or you may be attracted to someone, he's just perfect or she's just perfect. But God says, look deep within. Don't go with what is outside. Go deeper. So you need to find out if this person is capable of being a God alone person, a monotheist. Give up their traditions and false beliefs and come into submission. A monotheist, basically. Someone who doesn't commit idolatry. These invite to hell, while God invites to paradise and forgiveness, as He wills. So it's a warning to us that if you insist on this, you're going to go to hell. We have to be sure that this person is going to be a partner in the journey towards success in the hereafter. If this person is not going to join you in that cause towards purifying yourself, being a better man or woman, if this person is not going to support you, that means this person is dragging you to hell. So it's important that we have a partner who helps us. If we don't do our contact prayers, this person should say, why are you not doing your contact prayers? It's important. If you hesitate with charity, this person should remind you. You should do it. They are your relatives. You should pay. So this is a blessing. A person like that is a huge blessing. Because we are not always perfect. We slip sometimes. So if we have a spouse that reminds us that we have to do what God commands, that's an amazing blessing. So God says at the end of the verse, He clarifies His revelations for people that they may take heed. So it's important for us to submit to God's instructions. Our ego will say, no, I will just fix it somehow. I will try to convince this person. Somehow I'll get it done. You can't. You can't make a believer out of a disbeliever. Only God can. So if you are in the business of guiding people, it's never going to work. Yes, you can tell them, you can inform them, but guiding them through the true path is God's business. So our ego will tell, no, I'm going to fix it. Or maybe after marriage, he will be convinced, or no. We have to wait until they believe. If that person never believes, then that means that person is not meant for us. And in Surah 5, verse 5, God says, today all good food is made lawful for you. The food of the people of the scripture is lawful for you. And also you may marry the chaste women among the believers, as well as the chaste women among the followers of the scripture, provided you pay them their due dowries. You shall maintain chastity, not committing adultery, not taking secret lovers. Anyone who rejects faith, all his work will be in vain, and in the hereafter he will be with the losers. So again, God gives another instruction. He says that certain women are, this is to the men, are permitted for you. You may marry them, women from the previous scriptures, as long as they are righteous. They are righteous women. Their past does not count. If they are righteous women and they are maintaining morality, they are permitted for you. But there is a condition, you shall pay them their due dowries. So as a man, when you take a woman in marriage, God has given us clear instruction that we have to give them due dowry. While saying that, God says that you shall maintain chastity, like purity. You should not indulge in fornication or having any sort of physical relationship outside of marriage. Not committing adultery, not taking secret vows. If you're having a relationship, you are supposed to inform people that yes, I'm saying you can't maintain secrecy forever. So you have to inform people, because why is God insisting on that? It's for the sake of both the people involved in that relationship. When other people know, they are not playing around. You see, it is a genuine attempt to establish a relationship. So that's why God says, do not indulge in secret lovers. Now, you may not want to do it, but maybe your partner wants to keep it a secret. That's a red flag. Because if they want to keep it secret, that means they want to have a secret relationship with you, and that's not permitted. It has to be made public at some point, maybe not at the first day, but at some point you have to inform. That's what the Quran says. Anyone who rejects faith, all his work will be in vain, and in the hereafter he will be with the losers. There is a law in the Quran which we should be very careful about. This is in Surah 24:23. The adulterer will end up marrying an adulteress or an idol worshipper, and the adulteress will end up marrying an adulterer or an idol worshipper. This is prohibited for the believers. So clearly, Quran is teaching us that if you are seeking someone that is not meant for you, if you are chasing an idol worshipper, that's because you are corrupted as well. So that is why I'm saying, if you are a person of that nature, if you ended up with someone who is not good for you, it's probably then you have a correction to make within yourself. So that's the reason why you ended up with the wrong person. If you established a relationship with the person and that person was not meant for you, you never had any peace, tranquility, or contentment with that marriage or in that relationship, that's because that person is not meant for you and you made a wrong choice. The ego led you. So that means you need correction. So you correct yourself. Perhaps your perceptions of what a partner should be is wrong. You mature yourself, you understand what the Quran says and what importance God places on finding a partner. One, you should believe that a soul has been created for you, and therefore you should seek God's guidance to find that person. Don't tell, there's nothing harm in telling other people, but don't think that others can find it for you. It will never happen unless God wills it. So you have to remember that God is the one who guides you to your partner. Two, he or she has to be a believer. They have to believe. The foundation of that relation should be love, mutual love. If there's no love, it doesn't work out. It never works. So this is what the Quran teaches us, and also tells us that we should not be chasing adulterers and idol worshippers. This is prohibited for us. We should not be. It's very clear. Now, God also goes into detail of what this relationship is. What should a spouse be for her husband, and the husband for her. This is mentioned in Surah 2, verse 187. Permitted for you is sexual intercourse with your wives during the nights of fasting. They are the keepers of your secrets, and you are the keepers of their secrets. The literal meaning is that one covers the other, which means your spouse covers you and you cover them. So whatever problems you have, whatever secrets you have, whatever things that you confide in a person, they honor it, they keep it, and you do the same for them. So this is the kind of relationship that God teaches us to establish with our spouses. You have to be able to confide in them, and they have to be able to confide in you. And you trust each other. You are compassionate towards each other. You honor them. You don't expose them to others. You don't bash your husband in public and say, he's like this, he's like that. And the wife doesn't go around, the husband doesn't go around bad-mouthing the wife. This is not the kind of relationship Quran teaches us. You have to cover them, and they have to cover you. You have to protect. The word libas has many meanings actually. It also means that you have to protect them in every way. If they are committing something that's wrong, you have to rebuke them. You have to inform them, remind them. So this kind of relationship has to be there between the spouses. They have to correct each other all the time. They have to protect each other, correct each other, remind each other, love each other, be compassionate, forgive each other. All this thing has to happen. So if you're not able to do that with your spouse, that means you need to change something about yourself to establish that relationship. And then in that verse, God speaks about Ramadan and eating during the month of Ramadan, not eating during Ramadan. In Surah 2, verse 223, God says, your women are the bearers of your seed, thus you may enjoy the privilege however you like. So long as you maintain righteousness, you shall observe God and know that you will meet Him. Give good news to the believers. So God is telling us that your women are your bearers of your seed. They bear your children. And God gives us the right to enjoy that privilege. However you like, as long as you maintain righteousness. So you can enjoy that privilege if you are righteous. If you're an unrighteous person going around doing whatever you want, that's not a privilege that, so the woman can deny it to you. I'm not going to bear your children anymore because you're not a righteous man. So this is what the Quran says. The privilege is conditional. You cannot say, oh, she's my wife, I can do whatever I want, and she has to just comply. The privilege is only permitted for you as long as you maintain righteousness. It's very clear. You shall observe God and know that you will meet Him. Give good news to the believers. And in cases of dealing with your spouse, God reminds us very clearly that we should treat them nicely. Very important. Couples, they treat each other sometimes horribly. People who are not believers. But even if we are believers also, we may end up sometimes, getting agitated or angry, and we may treat them harshly. But the Quran says in Surah 4 verse 19, and this is in the context of an inheritance, O you who believe, it is not lawful for you to inherit what the women leave behind against their will. You shall not force them to give up anything you had given them unless they commit a proven adultery. You shall treat them nicely. If you dislike them, and this is a general thing, if you dislike them, you may dislike something wherein God has placed a lot of good. We may hate some aspects of our spouse. I don't like this, I don't like that, or I don't like this woman, or I don't like this man. But God says, be patient. You may dislike them for something, but there may be something more better in that person. So here God is teaching us to treat people nicely and be patient. Then in another verse, God speaks about marrying someone who has been previously married to a disbeliever. And this is in the context of war. In the context of war, you cannot marry someone who's, in normal circumstances, you cannot marry someone who's previously married. Because not previously married, like who's already married. You can't marry them. It's haram. However, in certain circumstances, it is permitted. And this is in Surah 60, verse 10. O you who believe, when believing women abandon the enemy and ask for asylum with you, you shall test them. God is fully aware of their belief. Once you establish that they are believers, you shall not return them to the disbelievers. See? So here God says, once they become believers and they come to the believers' camp, then we don't need to return them back. They are not lawful to be remain married to them, nor shall the disbelievers be allowed to marry. See, so officially they may still be married. Officially they may have a contract with the government. But according to the Quran, that's invalid already. If they leave their spouses and come to the believing camp, they are haram for them, and these people are haram for them also. The women are haram for them also. Generally, in our culture, women who come from such social conditions and then they leave their disbelieving husbands and they come, most men will not prefer to marry them. Or they were previously married. Why should I do it? No. But the Quran tells us you may marry them. So just because somebody was previously married does not mean, to a disbeliever, does not mean now they should not be, we don't need to marry them. We can. God says, actually tells this. You commit no error by, and also to give back the dowries that the disbelievers have paid. You commit no error by marrying them, so long as you pay them their due dowries. Do not keep disbelieving wives. They wish to join the enemy. You may ask them for the dowry you had paid, and they may ask for what they paid. This is God's rule. He rules among you. God is omniscient, most wise. So as the Quran, if you look at the Quran, there is no such thing as you cannot marry this woman or that woman because they were previously married, nothing like that. No, none of those cultural prejudices are there in the Quran. They are all permitted for you. And it's more better if you can protect a man or a woman, or actually a woman who has been abandoned by their disbelieving husband. It's more righteous. And in Surah 4, with this inshallah and the khutbah, Surah 4 verse 34, God reminds us the duties of the couple towards each other. The men are made responsible for the women, and God has endowed them with certain qualities and made them the bread earners. The righteous women will cheerfully accept this arrangement, since it is God's commandment and honor their husbands during their absence. If you experience rebellion from the women, you shall first talk to them, and then you may use negative incentives like deserting them in bed. Then you may, as a last alternative, beat them. If they obey you, you are not permitted to transgress against them. God is most high, supreme. So here God is putting the man in charge with a huge responsibility. It's not a privilege that you can impose your will on someone else. No, because there is no compulsion in religion. So a husband does not have the right to impose his will on his wife, so long as it's not in accordance with God's law. Any will that the husband imposes on the wife has to be in accordance with God's law, because God is the only authority who has the right to impose his will on his servants. So God has made the man the responsible person in the house because he has certain qualities. Man can do certain things that women cannot. Women can do certain things that men cannot. Like bearing children, men cannot bear children. Men cannot nurture children. Men generally cannot multitask like women. Women can do a lot of things which men cannot. The righteous women will cheerfully accept this arrangement since it is God's commandment. So a righteous woman will accept God's arrangement. They will not rebel against this arrangement. They let the men take the lead, and then they will support their husbands. The woman has to support. So when you look for a spouse, you need to think about this. Will this woman let me be the man in the house, or I'll be the wife and she'll be the man in the house? You see, you have to think about this. You have to read the character of the person. Now, of course, the Quran doesn't prohibit you supporting your wife. If she's cooking and she's overloaded, you can go and cook. The Quran doesn't say you cannot help your wife. The same way with the wife. If you're in the office and you say, can you just drive and get the groceries? The Quran doesn't say, no, you should not. The wife should not do it. Nothing like that. There is always flexibility in the marriage. But the primary responsibility still is with the man. The man is the breadwinner. And that arrangement is made in accordance with our nature. That's why God says, I have given certain qualities. If there is an intruder in the house, the woman cannot deal with it. It's the man who can deal with it. Open the door and say, who are you? It's the man who can do it. So there are certain qualities that the man has. And there are certain qualities that the woman has. So all these things have been made, all these arrangements have been made in accordance with our nature. God knows who we are more than we do. We learn all these other things from outside, but God teaches us this is the best arrangement, follow it. So this is what God teaches us. And also He gives us solutions to when we have certain problems. Working it through, talking to each other, using a bit of force if it is in accordance with God's law. We cannot transgress against anyone without clear instruction from the Quran. So if something unrighteous is going on, you have the right to use force. That's a last resort. So many of these instructions are there in the Quran, which gives us the complete picture of who we should be looking for, how we should be treating our wives, how we should be treating our husbands, what kind of support you should give your wives and your husbands, so that the marriage is successful, so that there is peace, tranquility, and contentment. If this is not followed, that marriage is never going to have peace. That marriage is never going to have tranquility, no contentment either. Because something is missing there. And to fix that, God has given us guidance in the Quran. Akim as-salam.